Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. And for today, I'm going to be reviewing episode 8 of Alien Earth, which is the season finale. It's called The Real Monsters. So the episode starts off with the alien Xeno roaming around Cavalier's Island. All the Lost Boys, they're being held in a holding cage. And it turns out Nibs is alive and well. So when I thought in the last episode when Joe stunned her, I thought that her unit had been fried and terminated, but it turns out that her unit was a lot tougher than I thought. So I was wrong on that count. While pondering, Wendy realizes that everyone has just been trying to control them this whole time, and they realize now that they don't have to be controlled. She starts going on the offensive against Cavalier by messing with the comm system. She interferes with communications, taunts Sylvia, directs the alien Xeno on where to go. Meanwhile, Joe and Morrow are being held in a cage together, and Wendy releases them. Joe goes out to find Wendy. Morrow goes out to pursue Kirsch. They have a hand-to-hand fight, which ends up with both of them being down. Cavalier confronts the Lost Boys and wants them to understand that they're his property. Throughout the scene, he tells them a story about his own childhood, about how he built a synth when he was young to protect him from his abusive father, which led to him constructing his own company, which was Prodigy. Wendy opens their cell door, and Nibs attacks Cavalier's security while Cavalier flees. The Lost Boys then embark on a mission to round up everyone on site. Meanwhile, Joe finds Adam in Wendy's room. Adam lures Joe to the ice lug, hoping it will use Joe as a host. Joe is able to evade momentarily until Wendy comes to the rescue. She fights off the ice lug and Adam and is also able to immobilize him. She argues with Joe for stunning Nibs, in which she states that she doesn't know what she is or what her purpose is. She also wants Joe to own up to what happened and not brush off the situation as being complicated, saying that complicated is what weak people say. They then leave and catch up to Cavalier, who's trying to escape the island. Wendy has instructed the Xeno to stop Cavalier from leaving. The Xeno takes out Cavalier's security, while Joe and Wendy take out Cavalier. After all this has happened, the ice slug has found its way to the beach and comes across Arthur's dead body and uses Arthur's corpse as a host. In the end, the Lost Boys have rounded up all the remaining adults, and they're held up in the cage. Weyland-Yutani forces are embarking on the island, and Wendy states now makes it clear to everyone with the Xenos under her control that basically now the Lost Boys are in charge. I really liked how this episode had a lot of dark settings. It really shows that things are falling apart. Scenes like the soldiers going through the corridors, Nibs when she confronts Dr. Sylvia, the Xeno as he catches up to Cavalier as he's trying to escape. There were dark scenes, but also because you could also actually see what's going on. This was one of the problems in the movie Alien vs. Predator Requiem. That movie was really dark, and sometimes we had trouble seeing what was happening. So it was nice that the cinematography in this episode had found a good balance between being dark and being able to see what was going on screen. One thing I definitely absolutely loved was that it was mentioned in this episode that Cavalier has ADHD, and that just really goes a long way into explaining his just the way his character's behavior and the way he just acts so impulsive. I myself have ADHD, and I'm still trying to figure out the best way to go on about managing it. Thankfully I've never gone to the extreme like someone like Cavalier is, but then again, Cavalier is also Cavalier is insanely rich, so maybe I should take a page out of his book. Another highlight for me was the exchange between Joe and Morrow. In the cell, Morrow taunts Joe about his about the lung that he got from Prodigy, and explains that there's a price, and Joe immediately believes the price is going to be everything, and to which Morrow says everything doesn't even begin to cover it. That's a very true statement about this whole alien universe, especially with the character Ripley. I mean, Ripley, she's a connection for Weyland-Yutani and the alien creature, and they've just basically taken everything away from Ripley and more. They use Ripley to try to get the creature. Ripley dies trying to make sure that they don't get it, and then by Alien Resurrection, they cloned Ripley to acquire the creature. So it's like they're not even going to let Ripley die. They're just constantly taking everything. I think just about everyone can agree that the real highlight of the episode was Wendy's arc. And then throughout this whole season, the show has been having this Lost Boys theme about never growing up. And I'm not I've never really been too familiar with Peter Pan, but I've been reading that the Lost Boys do eventually grow up, and that's what's going on in this episode. Cavalier and the whole prodigy is trying to control the Lost Boys and keep them from growing up, but Wendy realizes that they don't have to be under their control. In the argument she has with Joe, when she scolds Joe for studying Nibs, but then Joe tries to explain himself that Nibs was attacking his friends, he didn't know what to do, and the whole situation was complicated. She says she doesn't want to hear Joe say complicated. She wants Joe to basically own up to what happened. She also says that I'm not Marcy, I'm not Wendy, I don't know what I am. And it's basically her, I think in my interpretation of it is that she's deciding that she's going to be what she wants, and she wants to be strong. She doesn't want she doesn't want to hear things complicated, because she considers that to be a weak answer. She wants this to be like the beginning of something strong. An interesting part I found was at the end of the fight scene between Kirsch and Morrow. Morrow, he mentions the story of John Henry, as he has the upper hand against Kirsch, and then Kirsch mentions that John Henry died of exhaustion, and during that moment he gets the upper hand and manages to take Morrow out. But basically throughout the fight they've both become injured and immobilized, and so that story, from what I read, kind of shows that humanity trying to win against machines ultimately has a price. So it seems like neither man or machine really wins, and Wendy and the Lost Boys, they're trying to be more than than machines. They're trying to be more than human, and now they're winning. Another part I really liked was the scene of Cavalier as he talked about his childhood, about when he had built his first synth to basically attack his father, and the synth then became his father, how his voice was overlaying over scene of Joe being confronted by Adam in Wendy's room. It's almost like as if Cavalier was essentially would be narrating Joe's demise, and it would be the start to him finally being able to talk to the Ice Slug, if the Ice Slug had managed to use Joe as a host. So overall, the episode, this whole finale didn't really play out in the way I was expecting it to, or hoping it would have. I really wanted some big, action epic going down between Yutani and Prodigy. Who knows? Maybe that's just gonna happen in the next season. Maybe it could play out like the way Empire Strikes Back does. So Empire Strikes Back is not like your typical action movie. Instead of having the big action finale at the end, that movie's big action epic is the Battle of Hoth, which happens in the beginning of the movie. So maybe we'll have some big crazy action sequences in the beginning of season 2, and we'll have something like really notable storyline play out for the rest of it. The show overall, I would say, it's been very interesting. It's been an interesting journey. I will say that I do think the show feels a little more like fan fiction than it does feeling like something that was like an official Alien entry. That's which contradicts my first thought. I did think that it felt like a little mini Alien movie, but that's only because the first episode, and that the first episode had had significant moments that took place in space, and yeah, this episode had to feel different because it took place on Earth. But I just mainly because the Xeno and Whale and Yutani, they're mostly been they haven't really been main focuses. So that it seems like more like a story that takes place it seems more like a story that just happens to take place in the Alien universe rather than an Alien story. But maybe that now that Yutani is coming in on the Prodigy site, maybe they'll play a more significant on-screen presence in season 2. So I guess we'll have to see how that plays out. All right, take care.